This is Lagyu Vakya Vritti versus 11 and 12. Could everybody mute, please, as well? Thank you. Okay. Verse 11, the talk will be just very quick, and then the more in-depth one is verse 12. When the prior cognition has subsided and another has not yet risen, cognition-free consciousness shines clearly. Vicky had said yesterday about when the in between thoughts, when there is no form and there is only consciousness, that is that the same as deep sleep? And I've asked Swami Vivekananda. I haven't got a reply, but going by the next couple of verses, I'm inclined to suggest that it is because there's no form. Swami Vivekananda uses an explanation, we'll see here in this verse, Nirval Kappa Chaitanyam, which is unconditioned consciousness, and it's explained further in seed form. That's the same as deep sleep, as far as I would explain it. It's another way of explaining it. So it's not 100%, but I'm guessing that's what it is. But we'll see anyway, we'll see. Okay, as we go through this verse, these two verses, we'll see why that could be the case. Okay, so when a prior vritti of thought is destroyed, when it's gone away, and as long as there isn't another vritti thought arising, as in when you come to the end of one om, the pause, the gap, and before the next one arises again, the next thought arises, the next vritti arises, nirva kalpa, consciousness, chaitanyam is, nirva kalpa is unconditioned, chaitanyam is consciousness or chit. So nirval kapam, chaitanyam or chit is, this is pure consciousness. Experience is conditioned consciousness. So in between two oms, what's present? If we're meditating, what's present? Consciousness plus the form of om. If the mental activity is of that om, that mantra, that single mantra that we're reciting, like om, then there is a vritti, a mental activity of that om, which is consciousness plus the form of om. But it's only when om is recited. In between each om, each mantra, what is only present is consciousness. And this is because there is no form, no vritti, no mental activity. Consciousness, it appears clearly. We can't say that it's seen clearly, as Judy was mentioning yesterday. We can't, nirval kalpa chaitanyam can't be seen because nirval kalpa chaitanyam is consciousness without form. Huh? How can you see consciousness without form? The eyes, the sense organs, the pramana of sight can only see consciousness plus form. Yeah, that's objects. Okay. The mind can only experience consciousness plus form in vrittis, mental activities. Yeah. So form has to be present. When there's no form present, consciousness appears clearly. It's just present. Okay. And that's verse 11. We get to verse 12. I'm laughing because it's a very exciting verse 12. It's beautiful. Gradually increasing for 1, 2, 3 moments, the restraint of all cognitions should be practiced without effort by those who seek the experience of Brahman. So let's say we're meditating and you guys that have done Omkara The Omkara meditation, Omkara Vichara and the Mandukya, you know we speak about finding the gap. So let's say we found the gap. What we do in that gap, what we do by finding the gap is becoming aware of the gap between two thoughts. And once we find the gap, we lengthen that gap. Excuse me. A Swami told me that initially when people are meditating, they say Om, and they'll recite the Om long, Om. But as time goes on, particularly Swaminis who have been doing this a long time, then they will shorten the mantra and lengthen the gap. Yeah? Okay. And now we're going to explain now why that is so so beneficial. And this is a meditation technique that Puja Swamiji taught. So we are placing or replacing the associative thinking, one thought leading to another, like a tree going everywhere. We're replacing that associative thinking with an identical thought, let's say Om. It has to be the same thought, because if we try to find a gap between any kind of thoughts, that's not going to work. You can try it yourself if you want, but it's not going to work. So in meditation, the technical term is that we're creating a flow of identical thought, and that's how Patanjali also defines meditation. Remember, Vedanta uses Patanjali's yoga sadhana as a preparatory practice for the mind. We don't, we discount his yoga darsana because it's dualistic. Okay. Because there's a problem with samadhi and stuff. Samadhi being enlightenment, which isn't the case. So once we have created this flow, we're now this flow of identical thought, this flow of one thought, Om. There's the ability to lengthen the gap in between the Oms. But we can do this with, doesn't have to be Om. It can be any other mantra, such as Om Namah Shivaya. It's one of my favorites as well. When you lengthen the gap, if it's too wide, the mind's going to start to wander. You'll see this for yourself. So what you do is you just shorten the gap a little bit. You find your optimal gap, really. But Swami Tapananda teaches that most people can reach a few seconds of total absence of vrittis. That's something that can be aimed for. It's hard to put into words the experience, but that's not really important, really. But it's hard to put in. The benefit of the anima is exceptional. We work up to that gradually, and it's a skill that's learned. But we're to make effort, a real effort to do so, or it's advised that we make a real effort to do so. In the Mandukya Karika, Gaudapada teaches that Omkara Vichara, Omkara meditation, and the inquiry into Om is enough itself for meditation or for enlightenment, moksha, because Om represents Brahman. Okay. But there's a question. So we're now talking about creating a gap, and Swami Tapananda, with his favorite question, says, yeah, so what? Okay, you want to create a gap. What's the purpose? What's the benefit of that momentary silence? In deep sleep, we enjoy an hour or two of absent thoughts. And the benefit of that is that it is refreshing. But that's not the point of meditation. We're not doing meditation to be refreshed. It's missing the point completely. So I'll say it's, I'm not saying that it's not useful to be refreshed. I'm just saying that for our purposes, it's so shallow. So what have we found out is present in the gap so far? Consciousness. Not consciousness, it's you. You are present in the gap between vrittis. Or else, how do you notice the gap? Huh? You can't notice the gap if you're not present to notice the gap. How can you witness the gap if you're not? How can you witness the gap if you're not witnessing the gap? So you have to be there to witness it. That's why you witness it. You know, go around in circles with that. You, only you is present. But why do we search for this? Why is this gap sought? And it's at this point now in this text that we're entering a major and really exciting transition. So this verse, there's a rhetorical question, who would seek the gap? And this verse, I think it's the last line, is it? Yeah, by those who seek the experience of Brahman. The people who seek the gap are those who seek the experience of Brahman. And this is a monumental part of the text because this is the first time in the text that Brahman is even mentioned. And in the next few verses, we're going to focus completely on Brahman. And we're now in a very, very, like I said, an exciting phase of the text. Brahman is the top pada of the Mahavakya, Aham Brahmasmi, which is this text subject matter. So far, we've been in this text, we've been studying Twam pada, the meaning of you. That's the I consciousness, okay? That's the I, what the I refers to. The intention of the Mahavakyas are great contemplations. In those Mahavakyas, there are 3 words, or they're small, 3 words, and they are the entirety of Vedanta. The whole complete teachings of Vedanta are in the meaning, the unpacking, the unraveling, the deep insight of those contemplations. And the intention of the Mahavakya, the great contemplations, is to show that Twam and Tat, remember Tat Twamasi, Twam and Tat are the same. This is showing that you and Brahman, I won't say you and point at the person, you, the I consciousness, and Brahman are the same. This is the entire teaching of Vedanta. And to understand this is enlightenment because it is a complete teaching. It's not just the literal meaning, it's the Lakshartha, the implied meaning. In fact, Swami Paramarthananda teaches that as well as Shastra Vachara, as well as inquiry into Shruti and Shastra, scripture, it's also essential to do Vakya Vachara. It's also essential to do inquiry into the Vakyas, the sayings, the Mahavakyas, the great contemplations. So we're moving faster than I thought, which is good. What is Brahman experience? Because you guys will understand, Brahman experience, it sounds a bit of a problem. And there can be a huge misunderstanding with this. Because experience is experiencing a thing as an object. And can Brahman be experienced? Is Brahman an object that you can one day experience? No, of course not. Brahman's the reality of everything that exists. We have experience, and within experience we have the experiencer related to an object of experience. We have the experiencer and the object that they are experiencing. But ultimately, the experiencer is consciousness. Technically, it's chidabhasa, consciousness associated with everything in this experience. But it is consciousness in the presence of the mind. Consciousness in the presence of your mind, presence of your mind. And this is why the mind is called the Antakarana in Sanskrit. Karana means instrument, and Anta means inner. So the mind is the inner instrument. The five senses, they are also Karana. And they enable us to experience things outside, while the Antakarana, it enables us to experience things inside. In the absence of the mind, such as in deep sleep, there is no experience. It is present in seed condition, unmanifest. And it's now we're going to begin to look, conveniently enough, about in relation to Vicky's inquiry yesterday. So, the starting position, excuse me, got a frog in my throat, or a bunch of frogs in my throat. It's not very politically correct for anybody that's vegan or vegetarian, but it's only a saying. It's not factual. we start by saying there is consciousness plus the mind. Okay, that's what we're talking about here so far. But what is the mind? That now we're doing inquiry. What is the mind? The mind is vrittis, mental activities. And what are vrittis? Form. And is form a thing? No. There's no two things. There's only one thing. Advaita. That's consciousness. So we can see from the inquiry, there is only consciousness. What is form? It's not a separate thing. We went through this here quite a bit now. Form is not a separate thing to consciousness. The waves are not separate to the water. Okay? It's not two things. You're looking at the ocean. You can say ocean, waves, and water, but you're not looking at three different things. Right? It's the same. Okay? It's water. So just because something has form does not mean it's different. Does not mean it's separate. Does not mean it's limited. Forms in the mind, forms outside of the mind, they're not individual things. What is present in the mind and outside of the mind is consciousness. How can it be anything else? What else is there? What else is there besides consciousness? And this is very, very important. It's extremely important. This is avacharavada. This is, we're exploring the fruit of avacharavada. It's the end of Vedanta. Consciousness, it can only be consciousness outside the mind. It can only be consciousness inside the mind. That doesn't bypass the appearance of form. We're still talking about form. We're just saying what Vedanta is saying is that form is form of consciousness. Okay. So where's the separation? Where's the difference? Where's the limitation? Where's the lack? So even though the mind experiences and the senses see form, it's not two things that's being saw. It's only consciousness in different form or in form. The ocean with its waves, all the waves, it's still only water. Huh? Advaita. The object of experience, it's Brahman, is Brahman plus form. Form's not a second thing. The clay pot is always, always, always only clay. Nothing else, only clay. Brahman on a mobile phone is ultimately only Brahman. Is the mobile phone something different or separate from Brahman, from consciousness? Well, no. The hand that's holding the phone, what about it? It's Brahman as well, yeah? What about life? Is it separate from Brahman? No. Life is Brahman. Any object, every object is Brahman. The experiencer ultimately is only consciousness, Brahman, and the object is Brahman consciousness. So there's not two independent realities. There's only one reality. Brahman is manifest right now as this experiencer, and the experience, and as experience this class. There is only Brahman. The experienced is form, and the experiencer is pure consciousness. And Lagyu Vakya, it ends with the showing us that Sat Chit Ananda Atma is the same as Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahman. Chin Mudra, Lord Dakshinamurti, in the Dakshinamurti Stotram, Lord Dakshinamurti taught the four original rishis in silence by Chin Mudra, which is Sat Chit Ananda Atma, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahman, circle, which means they're the same. Even in Chin Mudra, the full meanings, it's a full meaning of Vedanta within Chin Mudra as well. That is the one truth. The reality because of which everything exists, Brahman, must be the reality in which the body exists. Yes? It has to be. The reality because of which everything exists must include this body that exists. Yeah? Which means it can only be the reality in which I exist. Okay. I am not separate from consciousness. No. So I am consciousness. I am Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. So where is separation? Where is limitation? And where is change? Where? How? The ancient Rishi said, it's another Mahavakya, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahman. There only is one Brahman. Another way of loosely explaining that is all this is Brahman. One Brahman, one consciousness, manifest in many forms. Water manifests as waves. Brahman is the object of experience, and Brahman is the experiencer. So now we're at the Mahavakya, Tattvamasi. This is what we're being taught here, Tattvamasi. It's the entire teachings of Vedanta in that three-word Mahavakya. Tvam is the truth of you. It's not different from Tat, the truth of all. So what does this mean in regard to experience Brahman? The problematic last line of the verse 12. Brahman can't be experienced as a separate object. We know this. We can't have a subject-object relationship with Brahman. It doesn't work. Brahman can't experience itself because that makes no sense. How does Brahman experience Brahman? That's Brahman objectifying Brahman when there only is Brahman. How does the water experience water? So when we think of the experience of Brahman in meditation in the gap, but it doesn't have to mean that. It can mean the experience which is Brahman. Not the experience of Brahman, not separation. The experience is Brahman, which is Brahman. Immediate ownership, identity. Okay. This experience, it's consciousness. This experience now, this class, is consciousness with form superimposed on it. But as we know now, it means there only is consciousness. That consciousness has to be Brahman. The experience of this class has to be Brahman. And this is what the Mahavakya reveals. It's the key to freedom, that this experience is Brahman. Another Mahavakya is Prajnanam Brahman. Consciousness is Brahman. I flew through that class. Okay, so now we're going to see the connection to meditation and what the value of the silence in the gap between mantras is. In the gap, you are present. You, Brahman. You are present as pure consciousness, which is Brahman. Brahman is present in the gap. And we know that we can't experience Brahman. But that's okay, because there is no experience of Brahman. Because there are no thoughts, there are no vrittis, there are no mental activities, there is no experience. Thoughts are gone, and you are still there, or you are there. Yeah. Which means you are not the thoughts, which means you are not the mind, which means you are not the body. For you to be present when there's no experience, what does that mean? It means you're present always. You are present in the gap between form, between thoughts. You are present in the gap as Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. That's full stop. That is what is in the gap. In the gap between mantras, you abide as Brahman. We know that all experience, and this experience is Brahman, this class is Brahman, but the gap in between mantras is you abiding as Brahman. Can you see the wording? The wording is very specific here. We know that all experience is Brahman, that's objectification. This experience is Brahman, that's objectification of that experience, not objectification of Brahman. So all experience is Brahman, we're objectifying experience. This experience is Brahman, we're objectifying experience, this class. The gap in between mantras is you abiding as Brahman. There's no experience, there's no objectification. It's ownership. You are abiding as Brahman, you are Brahman, aham brahmasmi. That's what's in the gap. In between the mantras, you abide as Brahman. So in the next two classes, we're going to look at this even more. And if it's not clear, we'll look at it even more, so it's fine. Okay. Any questions? God, I didn't think I'd finish this class so soon. Kind of get a bit excited about this here part of the text, so I might have talked too fast.
I have just again a language question. What is abiding? Is like being or staying?
Not staying. Not staying. Being. Are. You are is a better word. You are. You are. Okay. Yeah. No.
Oh, no.
Abiding as Brahman. Not staying as Brahman, because there's no. In the gap between mantras is you abiding as Brahman. In the gap between the mantras, it is revealed that you are Brahman, or no abiding. Somebody help me out with a translation of the word abiding, please. Can anybody?
Yeah, I can look it up on the internet. But
give me one moment. Give me one moment, please. Can anybody else abiding? I want to get this right. Abiding.
Let's see if I can.
Just really basically, Vicky, it means that you, in between the gap, there is no objects, there is no experience, there's no mental activities. Everything, every form is no longer present, which means that you just are. Okay. You as in Brahman just are. Okay, or just is. Okay.
Yeah.
If we say. There's a bit of a problem with becoming or staying or even possibly even subtly being Brahman. Being might imply there's a transition, but that's not what this text is showing. This text is showing there's no transition. This text is showing that form is not different from Brahman, and when there's an absence of form, you remain, which means you are Brahman. With form or without form, that's what this is showing. Okay. Okay. Which means that because you are Brahman, even in the appearance of form or when there is no form, it means that there's no change, limitation, lack, or anything that can affect you. Because even though the form of change, the form of limitation, the form of lack is form, or else we couldn't speak about it, that is you as well. Okay. Problems are you as well. Problems are Brahman, of course. Loss is Brahman, lack is Brahman, death is Brahman, birth is Brahman. So this is where we start to get to taking the problems out of problems. The problems remain, but they're not a problem. Taking the drama out of drama. Drama remains, but there's no drama with the drama. Moksha, enlightenment, is internal matter that changes your perception of the external world and your internal reactions to the world. Okay. Any more questions, please? No.
Can I say something?
Yeah, of course.
No question. So that it can mean experience which is Brahman. That was a sentence, and the last sentence, another sentence was, you are present in the gap as Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi. And those two sentences, they touch me so much. I even without fully, clearly wording it, they just touch me. I want to share that.
It's so beautiful, because it means that now we have the yanam. We have to use this yanam. Okay, so what? So we have to see, do we still have utility? Does the mind and body still have utility? Having problems, having reactions, having judgments, having idealism, having bypassing, is that important? Well, it doesn't really matter either way from this point of view, Paramarthika, but from the point of view of the person, is it valid anymore? Because we can see that the person is Brahman as well. There only is Brahman, so there only is Brahman. This I consciousness is Brahman. When the form is there of the person, the form is there of the mind and body, it's Brahman. When the mind and body collapses in experience, and there is no experience, there is no form, there is only Brahman. But you're still there. You're still there in between the gaps. So what does that mean? means you're pure consciousness, you're Brahman. Or how do you know that there's a gap?
I find it so amazing that this I realized for a long time, but still it seems like suddenly it is like it is new,
Sure.
which is not. So I'm so amazed by that.
It's like, and Swami Taratmananda says this as well, and he still understands. I'm sure every Swami would as well. Like Swami Turiya taught me as well. Things come up in the person all the time, even if they're enlightened. Things are still coming up, and they're still. The enlightened person doesn't have to be sadhana because that's a means to an end, but they can do sadhana. And then the rhetorical point Swami Ramananda makes: why wouldn't they carry on studying? Why wouldn't they carry on understanding Vedanta? It's a beautiful process. So it doesn't really matter if you're ayani, I'll say pre-moksha. It's not politically correct, but if you're ayani or if you're yani, it doesn't really matter. We're students. We're people studying Vedanta, and that's a joy. That's a humble joy.
It's exactly what I wanted to say. It's a humble joy. Yes.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Okay, guys,
and
less than 1 minute. Sorry.
Okay, so I leave to ask questions.
I think you used all the time up. You're so greedy. Okay, guys, listen. Probably a class maybe later on the week or something. Okay. Right. Bye now. Namaste then. Namaste.
Yeah, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much. And sorry to take all the time.
You're fine. It's fine.